From colossal statues carved in mountains to tribes that knew the stars before telescopes existed, today, we're unraveling the world's greatest ancient enigmas. They say the stone remembers what humans forget. Around the world, ancient monuments stand like silent witnesses, carved not just from rock, but from mystery itself. Among them, there is one figure that sits in eternal meditation overlooking the meeting of three rivers in China. This is the Leshan Giant Buddha, a 71-meter-tall guardian carved directly into a cliff more than 1,200 years ago. It has survived earthquakes, floods, and empires, yet even today, scientists and historians struggle to understand exactly how, and why, it was made. Our story starts in the Tang dynasty, approximately in the 8th century. The rivers below the Min, Qingyi, and Dada were treacherous at the time. Countless boats capsized in their violent currents. A Buddhist monk named Haitong believed that a divine protector could calm the waters. With little more than faith and a vision, he started carving a colossal Buddha into the red sandstone cliff. He hoped that the presence of Buddha, facing the raging confluence, would bless the waters and bring peace to sailors. But this was no small act of devotion. It was an engineering project of impossible scale. And Haitong was not an engineer. Legend has it that, pressed by officials for his motives, Haitong insisted that he would sooner gouge out his own eyes than let corruption touch the sacred work. According to the legend, he did just that. His disciples continued the carving in his name and completed it in almost 90 years. Completely carved from the cliff face, it needed precision at the millimeter level so as not to lose its balance and symmetry. Its proportions are perfect, even though builders worked without modern measurements, scaffolding, or aerial views. But perhaps the most astonishing feature lies inside the statue. Below the surface, its head, shoulders, arms, and knees have a network of hidden channels diverting rainwater to prevent erosion. It is considered by modern engineers as a masterpiece of ancient hydrology, centuries ahead of its time. How would a group of 8th century craftsmen, working only with chisels and bamboo tools, have understood such a form of structural design? Some researchers think that they learned through experience. Others whisper that it reflects knowledge lost in time, perhaps inherited from some earlier, forgotten civilization. And then there are those who look to the stars. From the air, the Buddha's tranquil gaze seems to align almost perfectly with Mount Ame, one of China's most sacred peaks, long considered a gateway between heaven and earth. Some of the literature describes light descending upon the mountain at the completion, which some people interpret as some spiritual event, while others interpret it as a cosmic event. Coincidence? Or was the monument deliberately aligned in a larger celestial pattern, the same way pyramids and temples across the world mirror the heavens? Archaeologists tend to disregard those ideas, but they can't deny how mathematically perfect the Leshan Buddha is. Each line, every curve, and every proportion follows a harmony that feels more like geometry than art. Empires have risen and fallen over the centuries. Floods reshaped the rivers below. Yet the giant Buddha does not move the placid expression unruffled by time. In 2020, following record rainfall, the statue's feet were submerged for the first time in decades. And yet, it endured as if the timeless guardian refuses to be forgotten. Modern preservation teams study the statue by using drones and 3D scanning. They've discovered microtunnels and inner chambers so small and precise that even today's laser tools struggle to map them. What were they for? Cooling vents? Ritual chambers? Or something we're not meant to find? Perhaps what makes the Leshan Buddha so haunting isn't just its scale, but its silence. No inscriptions name the builders. No records describe the full plan. And the man who envisioned it into reality, the monk Haitong, slipped into legend. More than a millennium later, the Buddha continues to look out over the rivers as if watching humanity's endless struggle below. Was he meant to protect us or to remind us of something long forgotten? What do you think? Was the Leshan Giant Buddha purely a triumph of faith and engineering, or might its perfection hint at knowledge far beyond its time? They say the stones remember what people forget. Around the world, ancient monuments stand like silent witnesses, carved not just from rock, but from mystery itself. Of these, one figure sits in eternal meditation, watching over the meeting of three rivers in China. This is the Leshan Giant Buddha, a 71-meter-tall guardian carved directly into a cliff over 1,200 years ago. It has withstood earthquakes, floods, and empires for centuries. Even today, scientists and historians do not fully know how and why it was made. Our story takes place in the Tang dynasty, roughly the 8th century. Down below, the Min, Qingyi, and Dadu rivers ran swift and treacherous. Countless boats were overturned in their violent currents. A Buddhist monk, named Haitong, felt that a guardian deity could pacify the waters. With little more than faith and a vision, he began carving a colossal Buddha into the red sandstone cliff. He thus hoped that the presence of Buddha, facing the raging confluence, would bless the waters and bring peace to sailors. But this was no small act of devotion. It was an engineering project of impossible scale. And Haitong was not an engineer. It is said that when the officials asked him his motive, Haitong replied that he would rather gouge out his eyes than let corruption touch this sacred work. According to legend, he did just that. His disciples continued the carving in his name and completed it in almost 90 years. Entirely carved out of the cliff face, millimeter precision was needed to sustain the balance and symmetry of the statue. Its proportions are perfect, although builders worked without modern measurements, scaffolding, or aerial views. But perhaps the most astonishing feature lies inside the statue. Its head, shoulders, arms, and knees feature a complex drainage system, concealed channels that allow rainwater to be distributed elsewhere to prevent erosion. Modern engineers call it a masterpiece of ancient hydrology, centuries ahead of its time. How would a group of 8th century artisans, with chisels and bamboo tools, understand this kind of structural design? Other scholars believe that they learned through experience. Others say it reflects knowledge lost to time, inherited perhaps from some earlier, forgotten civilization. And then there are those who look to the stars. Seen from the air, the serene gaze of the Buddha aligns nearly perfectly with Mount Amei, one of China's most sacred peaks, long considered a threshold between heaven and earth. Ancient texts describe light descending upon the mountain when the Buddha completed his work. Some consider it a spiritual event, while others look upon it as a cosmic happening. Coincidence? Or was the monument deliberately aligned as part of a larger celestial pattern, the same way pyramids and temples across the world mirror the heavens? These are ideas that archaeologists may dismiss, but they can't deny how mathematically perfect the Leshan Buddha is. Every line, curve, and proportion follows a harmony that seems more like geometry than art. Empires have risen and fallen over the centuries. Floods reshaped the rivers below. Yet the giant Buddha remains unmoved, its calm expression uncaring of time. In 2020, following record rainfalls, the statue's feet were submerged for the first time in decades. Still, it endured as if the timeless guardian refuses to be forgotten. Modern preservation teams use drones and 3D scanning to study the statue. They've discovered microtunnels and inner chambers so small and precise that even today's laser tools struggle. From the silent mountains of China, our journey now drifts west, across deserts, rivers, and centuries, into the heart of one of humanity's oldest urban civilizations. A place where mystery doesn't stand tall in stone, but rests quietly in clay. These are the figurines of the Indus Valley civilization, small, intricately made, and 4,000 years old. They were discovered in the ancient cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, two prosperous trade, artistic, and engineering centers that, when at their height of prosperity, vied in renown with Egypt and Mesopotamia. Yet, while we've unearthed bricks, streets, and drainage systems, it's these small clay figurines that really whisper the deepest questions about who the Harappans truly were. Hundreds of them have been found by archaeologists, men, women, animals, and mysterious deities, all so skillfully sculpted that they defy their age. Some of them are only a few inches tall, but every line and curve feels intentional. Some wear elaborate headdresses, others hold animals or musical instruments. One of the most famous, the dancing girl of Mohenjo-Daro, seems to move even though she's made of bronze, one hand on her hip, her head titled with timeless confidence. But what were these figurines for? Some think they were toys, the ancient equivalent of dolls for children. Others say they were fertility symbols used in rituals to pray for growth, harvest, or life itself. While a few scholars believe that they may represent deities, that is, the earliest forms of divine feminine which later evolved into Hindu goddesses. But here's where the mystery thickens. The Indus people left behind no deciphered writing. Thousands of these symbols have been unearthed on seals and pottery. Computer, no linguist, has managed to unlock their meaning. Without their words, the figurines are like messages from a civilization that refuses to speak. Each new discovery brings yet more questions. Why do so many of these figures have distinct hairstyles and ornaments, as if depicting real individuals, not just generic shapes? Why do some of the animal figurines seem to depict creatures that do not exist, hybrid beings which could have represented myths or spiritual visions? And why are there so few figurines of men, compared to women and animals? All these details hint at something more than just art. Small holes in the shoulders of certain figures may have once held strings or wooden limbs, perhaps they were used in ceremonies, moved by priests or storytellers to act out ancient myths. Others were buried in homes, perhaps as protective charms guarding the family against invisible forces. Still, without a written explanation, everything is mere speculation. Were these figurines simply expressions of everyday life, or keys to a forgotten faith that shaped early Indian civilization? Some researchers even believe the figurines connect with later Hindu rituals, carrying echoes of worship that survive thousands of years. The figurines of cows, for example, hint at the sacredness of cattle long before the Vedas were written. And the female figures, with exaggerated hips and jewelry, may have portrayed the mother goddess, symbolizing life and renewal. Yet others argue that those kinds of interpretations project too much of our modern perspective onto an ancient culture, which we barely understand. Perhaps the figurines were neither gods nor toys but something else altogether, something we no longer have words for. As excavations continue, 3D scanning and residue analysis by scientists have shown how these artifacts were made. Some even bear fingerprints still pressed into the clay, touches from hands that shaped them 4,000 years ago. It's a haunting reminder that each figurine was created by someone with intention, skill, and imagination. They may have been silent for millennia, but in their stillness, they tell stories of faith, creativity, and mystery. Stories that no inscription can match. So, what do you think? Were these figurines sacred offerings, children's toys, or symbols of a belief system we've yet to understand? Maybe they are all three proofs that even the tiniest of creations can hold the weight of a whole civilization. High on the arid plateaus of Mali, West Africa, there is a people whose tales stretch much farther than the earth. The Dogon tribe, farmers, craftsmen, and storytellers, have protected a body of knowledge that seems almost impossible for its time. A knowledge of the stars, of invisible worlds, and of cosmic rhythms that modern science only confirmed in the last century. Their legends tell them the star Sirius, which they call Sigue Tolo, is the brightest light in the night sky. But here's where the mystery begins. Long before the invention of telescopes, even long before modern astronomy, the Dogon described Sirius not as one star but as a system of three, Sirius A, its dense companion Sirius B, and an elusive third star sometimes called Sirius C. They referred to the tremendous density of Sirius B, stating that it was made of the heaviest substance known, while it also orbited Sirius A every 50 years. The same facts were only verified by modern science in the 20th century, using highly developed telescopes. So how could an isolated African tribe know this? How did they describe a star so small and faint that it is invisible to the naked eye? The French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germain Dieterlen, who first studied the Dogon in the 1930s, were astonished. The Dogon elders shared complex cosmological diagrams, stories of spiral orbits, and even maps of the solar system with Jupiter and Saturn in correct order, and the idea that planets revolve around the sun. All of this from a culture that has no written language. To the Dogon, this wasn't science, this was sacred knowledge, passed down through generations. The creation story speaks about beings called Namo, amphibious, celestial spirits that came from the sky in a great, spinning vessel, wrapped in fire and thunder. According to them, the Namo taught humanity the secrets of life, agriculture, and the cosmos before returning to the heavens. Every 60 years, the Dogon celebrate the Sigue festival, marking the Sirius cycle and the renewal of the world. In this ritual, masks taller than men dance through the villages. The songs echo across the cliffs and describe how the Namo came from the sky to introduce light to darkness. To outsiders, it sounds like myth. But when science confirmed Sirius B's orbit and density decades later, many began to wonder, was it really myth? Or could the Dogon have inherited knowledge from an older, forgotten civilization, or even from something beyond our world? Some claim the Dogon were visited by ancient travelers, beings that imparted cosmic truths before the start of history. In the 1970s, writers made this hypothesis into a sensation by linking it to the theory of ancient astronauts. The precision of the Dogon's knowledge in astronomy was, they claimed, evidence for contact with aliens. But not everyone agrees. Modern anthropologists propose that the Dogon could have learned about Sirius B through contact with European explorers or missionaries long before the famous study. Information might have been shared involuntarily, later incorporated into their oral traditions. Others say that early researchers might have mistaken symbolic myths for literal science, that spiritual metaphors got turned into alien theories. But even with those explanations, the mystery remains a bit uncomfortable. Why does such sophisticated astronomical information appear in a culture so geographically isolated? Why do the Dogon rituals, masks, and carvings apparently preserve cosmic symbols, the spiral of orbits, the twin stars, the descending beings, with such consistency over the centuries? Maybe their knowledge wasn't scientific in the modern sense, but observational. The Dogon are keen sky watchers, having studied the heavens to guide planting and harvesting seasons for generations. Is their mythology simply poetic renderings of what they observed, encoded stories that retain natural patterns in spiritual form? Or maybe it is something deeper, evidence of how human intuition can reach truths long before instruments can prove them. Even today, oral traditions among the Dogon are transmitted with sacral secrecy. Only selected initiates learn the whole cosmology, the layers of meaning which blend the material and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. They do not consider the stars as distant suns, but as living ancestors who whisper wisdom through the night sky. While scientists and skeptics alike continue to debate the origins of this knowledge, the Dogon seem indifferent. What others call mystery, for them is just the way things are. They say their ancestors came from the stars, and one day humanity will return there, too. Under the vast Saharan sky, it is hard not to wonder. Did the Dogon really inherit some cosmic truths from visitors beyond our world? Or do their myths remind us that ancient people might have known far more than we give them credit for? What do you believe? Was the star knowledge of the Dogon tribe born from careful observation, the teachings of a lost civilization, or something, or someone, not of this earth? Beneath the burning sun of the Jordan Valley, there is this city so old that it completely rewrote what we thought we knew about civilization itself. It is a place of scriptural mention, filled with myths, and cloaked with secrets buried under the dust of millennia. This is Jericho, the city archaeologists call the oldest continuously inhabited settlement on Earth. But what makes Jericho truly extraordinary isn't its age, it's what was found beneath its soil. Massive stone walls and a mysterious tower, built around 10,000 BCE, several millennia before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, even before metal tools or organized kingdoms existed. Their existence forces but one question. Who built them, and how? The city before the cities. While most of humanity was still roaming as hunters and gatherers, people of early Jericho had settled close to a fresh spring, the oasis of Ain Sultan. There, they constructed houses of mud brick, tilled and planted fields, and tended flocks. It was a time long before written language or the wheel. And yet, these people undertook one of the first great architectural projects in human history. Excavations uncovered the settlement, surrounded by a huge stone wall, almost 2 meters thick and more than 5 meters high. At the center of it was a tower over 8 meters high, with an internal staircase spiraling up to the top as if from another era. Workers built it by moving and stacking tons of stone without pulleys, cranes, or metal chisels. Each rock had to be shaped and placed by hand, guided by nothing but experience and imagination. Why would a small Neolithic community have such fortifications? There were no armies, no invading empires, no record of organized warfare at that time. So, if not protection from enemies, what were the walls of Jericho built for? Defense, flood, or ritual? The most popular theory says the walls protected the settlement from floods. The Jordan Valley's rivers were unpredictable, and sudden torrents could wash away crops and homes. A wall would have helped keep the community safe from nature's fury. But other clues suggest something deeper. The tower within the wall aligns with the sunset on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice. Its base is set precisely at the point where the shadow of the nearby mountain touches this settlement during that event. Was it then, not a fortification, but a monument to the sun, marking the rhythm of the heavens and the turning of time? If so, Jericho's builders weren't just farmers. They were astronomers, engineers, and visionaries, people with knowledge and purpose that seem out of place for their era. Some archaeologists believe that the tower was a part of ritual life, perhaps serving as a symbol of unity, protection, or even resurrection. It may have served as a meeting place where villagers gathered to honor their ancestors or those forces that gave them life. For others, it was a statement of power, proof that early humans had learned how to command their environment rather than fear it. A civilization out of time. Here's what unsettles researchers most. Jericho's wall-building technology, organization, and planning appeared suddenly. There's no evidence of smaller, simpler projects leading up to it. Almost as if, overnight, humans went from shelters to monumental construction, from survival to architecture. That sudden jump has led some to wonder if Jericho's first builders inherited knowledge from a lost precursor culture, one that was destroyed by the cataclysms that ended the last ice age. If true, Jericho could represent not the dawn of civilization, but its rebirth. Others argue that the answer lies within the ingenuity of the human spirit itself. Perhaps necessity, protection of food, water, and family, pushed these people to innovate beyond their ancestors' imagination. In their hands, stone became not simply shelter, but a statement: we endure. Echoes in Scripture. Thousands of years later, Jericho would appear again in one of the Bible's most dramatic tales. The tower within the wall aligns with the sunset on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice. Its base is set precisely at the point where the shadow of the nearby mountain touches this settlement during that event. Was it then, not a fortification, but a monument to the sun, marking the rhythm of the heavens and the turning of time? If so, Jericho's builders weren't just farmers. They were astronomers, engineers, and visionaries, people with knowledge and purpose that seem out of place for their era. Some archaeologists believe that the tower was a part of ritual life, perhaps serving as a symbol of unity, protection, or even resurrection. It may have served as a meeting place where villagers gathered to honor their ancestors or those forces that gave them life. For others, it was a statement of power, proof that early humans had learned how to command their environment rather than fear it. A civilization out of time. Here's what unsettles researchers most. Jericho's wall-building technology, organization, and planning appeared suddenly. There's no evidence of smaller, simpler projects leading up to it. Almost as if, overnight, humans went from shelters to monumental construction, from survival to architecture. That sudden jump has led some to wonder if Jericho's first builders inherited knowledge from a lost precursor culture, one that was destroyed by the cataclysms that ended the last ice age. If true, Jericho could represent not the dawn of civilization, but its rebirth. Others argue that the answer lies within the ingenuity of the human spirit itself. Perhaps necessity, protection of food, water, and family, pushed these people to innovate beyond their ancestors' imagination. In their hands, stone became not simply shelter, but a statement: we endure. Echoes in Scripture. Thousands of years later, Jericho would appear again in one of the Bible's most dramatic tales. According to the book of Joshua, the Israelites marched around its walls for 7 days until its fortifications crumbled at the sound of trumpets. For centuries, explorers searched for proof of that biblical moment, whether divine intervention or ancient legend. And though no definitive evidence links the Neolithic walls to Joshua's time, the symbolism is undeniable. The walls of Jericho have always represented the boundary between the human and the divine, between what is known and what cannot be explained. The ghosts beneath the stones. Using ground-penetrating radar, modern archaeologists have found several layers of construction beneath the site, each one built on the ruins of another. It is as if generation upon generation rebuilt Jericho atop its remembrance, never leaving behind the sacred pattern that no one dared to violate. Some layers show signs of sudden destruction, fire, collapse, abandonment. And then life would return, again, as if the city refused to die. Even today, the ancient mound of Jericho, **Tel Es Sultan **, rises above the desert like a scar left by time itself. From its summit, you can see the Jordan River shimmer in the distance, the same waters that have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. And it is there, among stones laid 10 millennia ago, that one feels the weight of something greater than human memory. It is aimed at encouraging each citizen to contribute to the development of the country without promoting inequality between men and women. The first architects of the human story. Perhaps these walls were not for mere defense or ritual purposes alone. Perhaps they were humanity's first declaration of permanence, a way of saying, *we are here. We belong to the earth, *the tower, reaching to the sky, was perhaps symbolic of the awakened human ambition, the instant where our ancestors stopped merely surviving and began creating. The person who built those walls changed history, never knowing it. They built a city, in truth, but they built the foundation of civilization itself. So who were they, really? Simple villagers who defied their limits, or survivors of a forgotten age who carried ancient knowledge into a new dawn? The stones keep their silence, but that says it all. They remind us that even on the edge of prehistory, humanity was already reaching upward, toward the light. What do you think? Were Jericho's walls the work of ordinary Neolithic farmers or the echo of a lost civilization? Beneath the frozen breath of the Ice Age, a spark was lit, a spark that would one day become us. With the skill of masters, they painted the walls of deep, dark caves. They shaped tools, carved figures, and dreamed of gods before the time of temples. They were the Cro-Magnon people, ancient humans who walked the earth nearly 40,000 years ago, and then mysteriously vanished. But did they really vanish? Or do their voices still whisper within us, in our blood, our bones, our DNA? The rise of the Ice Age artists. Coming to Europe for the first time, Cro-Magnon humans entered a world ruled by ice and giants. Woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, cave lions all shared the land. And yet, instead of merely surviving, Cro-Magnons thrived. Their tools were sharp, their shelters warm, and their minds, astonishingly modern. They left behind art that still takes our breath away, from the limestone caves of Lascaux to Chauvet. Horses running in motion. Bison locked in eternal combat. And strange, symbolic figures that seem to reach beyond hunting, into spirituality, ritual, and meaning. Some panels are so complex, they seem to tell stories of creation, of death, and of transformation. It is as if these early humans were not simply recording what they saw. They were expressing what they believed. The sheer beauty and precision of Cro-Magnon art suggests something remarkable. The birth of imagination. A mind capable not just of making tools but of dreaming worlds. The shared earth, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons. But the Cro-Magnons were not alone. Before them, Neanderthals had dominated Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Stocky, intelligent, and adapted to the cold, Neanderthals were not the brutish cavemen of old stereotype. They buried their dead, made jewelry, and cared for the wounded. So when the Cro-Magnons arrived, what happened between these two species? Was it war? Cooperation? Love? Genetic evidence now shows a surprising fact: they interbred. Every person alive today outside of Africa carries 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. That means the two species didn't just meet, they intertwined. They shared fires, tools, and families. Something new was born from that mingling of bloodlines. **** Modern humanity as we know it. Description: Masters of innovation. The Cro-Magnons built tools far beyond anything seen before. Fine bone needles for sewing tailored clothes, projectile points for hunting from afar, and musical instruments carved from bone and ivory. They constructed seasonal homes, hunted in coordinated groups, and established trade networks that stretched for hundreds of miles. They were no longer at the mercy of nature, they were shaping it. They were, in all the ways that mattered, already us. Their skulls were of similar size to ours. Their brains are just as complex. Their social lives are complex, emotional, and creative. Yet, around 10,000 years ago, as the Ice Age began to fade, so did they. The Great Vanishing. The name Cro-Magnon then suddenly disappears from the archaeological record. No sign of catastrophe. No mass extinction. They simply blend out of history. So what happened? Some scientists believe it was climate change. As the ice melted, the world they had mastered transformed, forests replaced tundras, animals migrated, and the sources of food changed. Others believe they were absorbed into new populations, adapting so completely that their distinct identity dissolved. They did not disappear, in other words. They became us. Calvin Cook, welcome to the Waterproof discussion with Mike Eaton. I've always liked the way Mike has expressed his ideas, concise, articulate, and humble. Mike has dedicated his life to photography, connecting himself with nature through the lens of a camera. It was a pleasure to speak with him. Echoes written in flesh. Today, as geneticists map the human genome, they find traces of the resilience and artistry of Cro-Magnons right in our cells. It's our ability to create, imagine, and express beauty. Those are Cro-Magnon gifts. The instinct for community, the instinct for storytelling, art, and purpose, those are the echoes of their minds. Every stroke of paint, every note of music, every invention is part of the chain that began in those Ice Age caves. They were not an extinct branch of humanity. They were the roots. Some anthropologists even suggest that the Cro-Magnon culture didn't disappear, it evolved into the first great civilizations. From their hands came the spark that would ignite Sumer, Egypt, and beyond. Their signs in ochre and ash prefigure the emergence of writing, myth and religion. So when you look at a Cro-Magnon painting, those running horses, those surreal figures, you are not looking at foreigners. You're looking into the mirror of your own ancestry. The culture clash between Cubans and other immigrants reveals the same thing. The mind that awoke, there's something haunting about them. They were us, but closer to the dawn of thought itself. Their art shows fear, wonder, and reverence. It's as if, in the darkness of those caves, humanity opened its eyes for the first time and whispered, *, we are alive. We understand. The Cro-Magnons stood at the edge of an age between beast and god, between survival and creation. And when the ice melted, their legacy melted into ours. We carry them in every heartbeat, every dream, every act of imagination. Maybe they never disappeared in the first place. Perhaps they just stepped into us, their story continuing behind our eyes. What do you think? Were the Cro-Magnons lost to time, or are they still here, whispering through our DNA, shaping the very idea of what it means to be human? Something strange lies along the windswept shores of New Zealand's South Island, giant, perfectly round stones that look as though they have rolled out from another world. They are known to the locals as Moeraki Boulders, and they have always elicited amazement and mystery over the centuries. Each one lies silent beneath the crashing waves, weathered by centuries, yet still astonishingly smooth as if carved by an invisible hand. Some are the size of small cars, while others, so perfectly spherical they could pass for the relics of a forgotten civilization. But what are they? The work of nature, or evidence of something far more mysterious? Whispers of the ancestors. Well before the geologists arrived with their theories and tools, the local Maori people had an explanation all of their own. Ancient legend has it that the boulders are the food baskets and water gourds of a great ancestral canoe, the Areturu, wrecked upon these shores after a long voyage from Hawaii, the Maori homeland of myth. The scattered cargo turned to stone, the canoe's remains forming the nearby cliffs, and the spirits of the crew said to still watch over the coast. To the Maori, these spheres weren't just rocks. They were tauna, treasures of the land. Sacred remnants that connect the present with the mythic past. The science beneath the stone. Modern science certainly offers a different narrative, one almost as unbelievable in its own terms. Geologists say that these boulders are concretions that formed about 60 million years ago in ancient marine mudstone. Visualize minerals like calcite slowly cementing around a central nucleus, maybe a fossil fragment, a leaf, or even a shell. Over countless millennia, the layers built up, like pearls forming around a grain of sand. Then, as the mud around them had washed away, the solidified spheres were left intact, revealed like buried worlds coming back to light. Their symmetry and size result not from chiseling, but from chemistry and time. And even today, new ones are being exposed by the relentless sea, proving that this process still unfolds beneath the Earth's surface. The perfect geometry of nature. But here's what makes them so captivating. Even knowing the science behind it, their perfection feels, intentional, Some are as large as 2 meters in diameter, their surfaces etched with natural hexagonal cracks that look uncannily like a cosmic blueprint. When sliced in two, they show crystalline cores that shimmer with veins of quartz and calcite, as if they hide the memory of their very creation. These internal patterns have inspired endless speculation. Some researchers marvel at how mathematical the shapes appear, following the same fractal symmetry found in snowflakes, honeycombs, even galaxies. Others, less conventional, say they could even be energy nodes, natural batteries formed by Earth's magnetic forces, or maybe remnants of some long-lost civilization which learned how to tap such energy. Of course, mainstream geology dismisses these as pseudoscience. But for those who stand before these giants at sunrise, watching the light reflect off their smooth, ancient curves, well, the feeling is undeniable. It is as though you stand at an intersection of nature and mystery where fact and myth quietly meet. It is customary, before using a hypothesis test for a single mean, to make sure that the probability distribution of the variable under consideration is normal or approximately normal. A living mystery. Even today, the Moeraki Boulders are alive, in a sense, not biologically, but in their movement through time. New boulders appear as the cliffs erode and roll down to the beach. Others, long exposed, crack apart under the weight of centuries, revealing the glistening minerals inside. So what we see today is but a glimpse, one moment in a geological story still unfolding. Yet each of these is a time capsule, carrying in its rocks memories of ancient oceans, volcanic ash, and the gradual alchemy of the earth itself. The question that remains whether you believe they were formed by natural forces, carved by gods, or charged by some forgotten energy of the planet, one truth remains: they remind us that even the most ordinary stones can hold extraordinary secrets. They sit silently on the shore, waiting, not to be solved, but to be wondered at. Proof that sometimes, the universe itself is the artist and earth its endless canvas. So what do you think? Are the Moeraki Boulders simply nature's slow, beautiful accident, or remnants of a knowledge that we have forgotten long ago? High up in the mountains of Greece, where mist curls around ancient ruins and the air hums with forgotten prophecy, lies a riddle carved, and never completed. A single, half-finished stone column, forever frozen mid-creation. It stands near the legendary sanctuary of Delphi, the ancient world's spiritual heart, where oracles once whispered the words of Apollo himself. However, this column is neither a temple pillar nor a broken relic of war. It is something stranger. A monument that was never finished, and nobody knows why. A work that time forgot. The unfinished column of Delphi lies in an ancient quarry, a short distance from the sacred site. There, embedded in the bedrock, rests an immense cylindrical shape, carefully carved. Perfectly symmetrical, but still tethered to the mountain as if the sculptor had simply vanished. According to archaeologists, it dates back over 2,500 years, possibly to the classical Greek era. It was intended to be moved to Delphi, where hundreds of columns once supported the great temples and treasuries. But this one never made the journey. Its surface bears marks of astonishing precision, smooth curves that seem beyond what hammer and chisel could easily achieve. Even unfinished, it exudes a certain elegance that can almost feel deliberate, as if the artist stopped exactly at the moment perfection met mystery. PJ. Why was it abandoned? The question that haunts this relic isn't how it was made, but why it wasn't finished. The supposition is that it cracked during carving and was never used. Others believe that some sort of sudden disaster, an earthquake, maybe, forced the workers to flee, leaving their masterpiece behind. Some archaeologists believe that political turmoil or war stopped construction, and it became a silent monument to the interrupted ambition of certain people. And yet, there is something about the placing and preserving that makes the simple explanations incomplete. No records mention its purpose or creator. No inscription marks its fate. It would seem as if time stood still here, leaving only questions where answers should be. Theories beyond time. Of course, where mystery lingers, imagination rushes in. Some fringe historians believe the column wasn't Greek at all, but rather pre-Greek, carved by some unknown civilization that mastered stonecraft long before recorded history. They point to the mathematical symmetry of the cut, claiming it aligns with the same geometric precision seen at ancient sites around the world, from Egypt to Peru. Others whisper about lost technologies, tools that could slice through granite with. Was it possible that the people of Delphi were merely inheriting knowledge, instead of inventing it? That they carved their sacred city upon the bones of something even older, something now erased from history? Imperfection as a symbol. Yet, perhaps the power of the unfinished column doesn't lie in mystery at all, but in meaning. In the Greek world, perfection was divine. Stopping before completion may not have been failure, but reverence. A symbolic act, leaving one work unfinished to remind humanity that only the gods complete creation. Seen in this way, the column is not an accident but a message. That beauty lies not in completion but in the striving. That even in the silence of abandonment, there is purpose. A monument to the unknown to this day, the column remains half buried in the earth, catching the golden light of the Greek sun. Most tourists pass it on their way to Delphi's temples, perhaps unaware that they walk by one of the quietest enigmas in history. But those who stop and really look can feel it, that strange hum of unfinished intent. The chisel marks seem to be frozen mid-movement. The story half told. It stands both as creation and question, a monument to human ambition and the mysteries that shape it. So, what do you think? Was the unfinished column of Delphi the victim of chance, or a statement left for us to consider? An accident in stone, or a message from the ancients, reminding us that some stories are meant to remain unfinished?